All right, I'm going to roll.
Okay.
Three, two.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're here again, Rick Moscoso, my partner, and myself. I'm Bill Bernard for another Bottle Business Sense show. You can hear us on bottlebusinesssenseshow.com, of course, in simulcast, and at Blog Talk Radio blogtalkradio.com/Bottle Business Sense Show in audio only. We're here to do a great show on backlinking and one of Rick's specialties. And let me say good morning to Rick in our sister studio. How are you this morning, Rick?
Good morning, Bill. Good to be here today. I'm excited to talk about this because we have this discussion all the time, how to do this.
Yep.
And it's confusing to most and avoided by many.
Well, no matter what kind of marketing tool you use, and of course Rick's specialty in videography, you're going to need to know how to make these videos work for you. And this is where Rick's expertise shines, because we're able to focus on a lot of different things that Rick does, of which the video is in the center of the circle, and it spawns out from there and allows these videos to become worthwhile because of all the different marketing features that are put into place with it. And again, our Bottle Business Sense show, as we've always said, right, Rick, is centered on marketing and legal protection. The ship, or your business, so to speak, is in this bottle, and it's protected, and it's sailing along, and it's going to be prosperous by putting in place various marketing techniques that Rick can help you with. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about backlinking, and I guess the best way to start, Rick, would be just to give a brief definition to our viewers and listeners. Exactly what is backlinking for those who don't know?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really backlinking isn't as difficult to understand as most people think. Really, at its basic definition, it's a link connection between two web pages. So between your web page and somebody else's web page, and ultimately that's how simple of a definition backlinks are. Now, why is it important? Well, it can certainly help you with your SEO rating. It can help boost your search engine ranking in Google, and it's something that's pretty easy to do as long as you know how to do it, what kind of content to use to promote a backlink back to your site, and some of the tips of what not to do, because there's some unscrupulous SEO companies out there, right, that can really damage your online reputation if you really don't. If they, first of all, let me just say this: there's good ones out there, and there's some ones that really try and tweak the system a little bit, and in a way that Google doesn't like. So,
right,
you really
have to be on your guard. And I noticed, Rick, that I know we've done another show that really focused and centered on content marketing and how valuable that is, and how that ties into the videos that you do. So I guess, you tell me if I'm wrong, I guess where we would start here before we begin to actually backlink is we're going to have to focus on content creation. I would assume, right?
Yeah, there's five little topics here that I really want to touch on, and then with the focus on backlinking, because putting this whole thing together, it'll help you understand how to get the right content together, or what kind of content should I produce, and how to share that with other websites, and then talk about the value of the pros and cons of backlinking. So really,
Right.
what we're going to talk about today is really the five ways that five things that you can do to improve your SEO. And the first thing is content creation. We had a show that we talked about this before, but in essence, it's important to do content creation because it helps promote your website, as the way Google sees it is, if you're more dynamic on your site and you're producing high value content, that can potentially lead to viral sharing. Google loves that stuff. They look for dynamic. They look for a website that's changing content dynamically. So if you're actively
Hmm.
blogging blog posts or articles that change either daily, weekly, whatever it is, you really, and if you're not doing that, you really should be doing that because that helps you organically boost your rankings with SEO.
Hmm.
And
And I go ahead. I'm sorry, Rick. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, no, I know you do this all the time, and
Right.
at great frequency, and really it's a win-win for not only you and your website, but it's also a win for the person that may be following you, that's looked to you as a resource or has looked to you as an expert in your field. It could be somebody who's just kind of watching you and discovered you as a resource, or it could be a client that you already done business with, and they're
Hmm.
just,
Hmm.
they want to keep up to date on some of those topics.
Well, I've heard people say, Rick, that you need what has been called high value content, and then that leads to viral sharing. So I've heard this over and over. So I wanted to ask you, what is how do you know when you have high value content, and then correspondingly, what is viral sharing? How does that tie in?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, high value content is something that's relevant, something that's frequently asked, um, or it could be topics that should be asked but haven't been asked yet. So
Hmm.
you, as an expert in the legal community, know what's going on. You're up to date on a lot of these issues or changes in your field that maybe the layperson isn't. So it's
Hmm.
important for you to be able to share that high value content with your clients, and then if, for instance, you are posting these things to social media, which you should be anyway, and I know you do, that if one of your viewers or followers on social media likes the content that you're producing, the high value content that you're posting on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever social platform it is, and maybe knows a friend or knows another business owner or associate that could benefit from this, and then they either forward it on in the form of an email, they like the link, that's it. That's if it's sitting in Facebook or whatever it is, they're passing it along on some kind of social platform
Hmm. Hmm.
that will help in your SEO ranking. Because again, Google looks at these things and says the more sharing that's going on with your content, the more high value it probably thinks it is, which also improves your SEO. So
And
it's a
they're good.
great.
They like a big happy family. In other words, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So and not only is that social sharing very important, but the more high value content that you can share with your audience,
Hmm.
the higher credibility or the better credibility that you start building in yourself and your business, and you start, more and more are you perceived as really the expert in your industry.
Right.
So
And if I could extrapolate from what you're saying, you tell me if I'm wrong. It seems to me that high value content would be determined from the target audience that you're going after, because you're going to know what they need to know, right? Because you've identified who that niche is, and therefore you're going to provide the up to date content in your field to those people who you know will be interested in that content.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know you deal with all kinds of different business law, employment law, and entity protection. So you can be as specific as you want in each of those categories, or you can be much
Hmm.
broader to a bigger audience. Because the more specific you are, obviously, the smaller audience that you're going to have for that. So if that happens to be a situation, then I'd mix it up a little bit. Be specific in maybe one blog post or an article, and then be a little bit more broad to kind of expand your following. So, those types of things are really important in content creation. Um,
And I would imagine also, Rick, right? You want this viral sharing or these, I guess, external backlinks that we're going to start talking about. You want them to be pointing back to the origination site, which I guess would be whatever your central website would be, right?
yeah, exactly. Everything points to home, and home is your website, right?
Okay.
That's where the crux of your information is. That's where Google, that's home base for Google, and they measure all the stuff that's coming back through external links back into your home base, which is your website. So that's one of the techniques. Another technique is really keyword targeting. Take a look at your industry. There's a bunch of tools out there, and I don't want to get too bogged down with this because there's a number of tools that you can use that Google has. There's a webmaster tool. There's paid tools out there that are really good that will help you with keyword searches because
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can go and use the generic whatever the obvious stuff is, but uh, does it help you? Yeah, in a little bit, but if the more specific you can get a keyword to your business, uh, or discover a keyword that's commonly searched but readily of not readily provided by your competitors in your area, then the better searching that you'll get for your website content.
These keywords should be contained within the content that you're going to use for your backlinking, right? Is that a
Yeah.
fair statement?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's correct. You want it. You want your keywords in the body of a blog post, for instance. If that's what you're doing, it would help to have a keyword in the title of the blog
Mm-hmm.
post. There's a number of different ways. If you're using WordPress and you go and you download Yoast for WordPress, Yoast is a really good starting tool for SEO because it'll help
Mm-hmm.
you with your keyword targeting. It'll help you get better results because it'll tell you, based on the title of your blog post, it'll tell you is that keyword present in the title of the blog? Is it present in the body of the post that you have? And it'll look for
Mm-hmm.
different things like that, and it'll flag if those things aren't there. And it'll actually show you what the um, Google search would look like if you use that keyword right there right there on the web page. Again, if you're using
Right.
WordPress, so it's
Well,
it's a great tool, and I would recommend to use that.
what if we took an example? Let's see if we can run through a quick example before we go to break. Let's say I'm going to put some content marketing out there, and it's going to deal with the distinction in different types of business entities, and so they would be S corporations, C corporations, LLCs. Let's take that as a simple example, and I'm going to want to do that. So, what would in that instance, Rick? Name a couple of keywords I would want to include in my content marketing and then show me how I would then backlink those, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yes and no. It's really backlinking is the process of sharing it with other sites.
Okay.
Keywords is really the words that you're using to help your article or your blog post be a little bit more visible uh, on the search engines.
So some of my keywords would be obviously LLC or the word corporations.
Hmm.
We're going to make this a very short, simple example, right? And
Yeah.
and now, how do I get those keywords which are in the content that I'm going to market? How do I get those out to other sites? How do I implement the backlinking, in other words?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in after a couple of more little smaller topics here,
Okay, all right,
because
let's do
it's
it that way.
yeah, because it's really important that we set this up correctly, so you know how backlinking can really help you, and understand that really it's the content that drives the backlinking. Uh,
Okay, good. Well, I'm
like,
glad I brought that up because
yeah,
this is your area. I'm learning in this show.
yeah.
I do these things, but I don't think of all the technical terms until I get to consult with you and speak with you. So before we get into these other little items that are going to lead into the answer to my question, let's take a quick break, and I believe you're going to tell us about our sponsor today, Rick, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've had this individual on our show in the past, early on, middle of last year, and that's Sharon Masler with Masler and Associates. Sharon is a CPA. She's getting into the very, very busy time of the year now with tax preparation. Wonderful research. She is a boutique firm that handles small businesses, individuals. Uh, so if
Mm-hmm.
you ever need help in regards to that, she's just a wonderful person and great service. Um, she's located here in Irvine, California, but she services clients all over the United States. So
And she also represents them if they ever have any issues before the IRS, I believe, right?
oh yeah, you and I have both heard wonderful stories with her. So if you do have issues with the IRS, are afraid to call or afraid to open up that envelope
Well,
that you might get in the
I
mail.
don't know that any story associated with the IRS could be classified as wonderful, Rick, but I
Yeah,
know what you're talking about.
yeah. So if you have any issues, Sharon's great,
and
and
where can we get a hold of her?
we can get a hold of Sharon at 949-857-0404. Their website is Sharon. I'm sorry. Their website is Masler CPA, MASLER CPA.com, and you can email her directly at Sharon at MaslerCPA.com. So
Great,
there you
fantastic.
have it.
Okay, we'll get back to the show now, and so now leading to the answer to my question, Rick, how you get this content and the keywords in place, and then how do you backlink them? You want to go through some other issues before we can really get to the crux of that. So what is it that we have to next do?
Well, I would recommend as you start getting into SEO, you really stay abreast of SEO activity, SEO news. You know, today's SEO isn't your mother's SEO from a couple years ago or a year ago or even six
Right,
months ago.
right,
Google is always trying to confuse us out there and challenge people to stay legit, stay
right,
current, and find better ways to reward those that are doing SEO correctly, right? Because
right.
like we mentioned before, there's some so-called black hat ways to to do SEO that you could actually get penalized and severely penalized, and your business could be impacted if you're a type of business that's doing a lot of online commerce. So stay
Okay,
abreast of SEO. There's great ways to do it. Just there's websites like Search Engine Land or Search Engine Watch. Go to those sites, take a look at what's happening today with SEO, or talk to your webmaster and or SEO guy if you're using one. So it's really important to that. And
and those two sites, Rick, would be searchengineland.com and searchenginewatch.com.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So or just Google them and it'll lead you to those sites. So they'll show you the major changes and best practices in SEO, things that you can do right away to prevent
Right.
your site from falling behind. And then at this, you can also use these resources really to monitor your competitors' backlinks. Okay, we'll get into
How do you do that?
well. It's interesting because what you do is you want to look at the what's going on SEO wise with your competitors and look at how their rankings are progressing or digressing, right? And so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you can determine that um, based on search engine queries, or even just look at where these tools will help you look at where the traffic is coming from the outside that are leading into their website. So
Okay.
there's tools out there. They're mostly paid tools. Um, have never used them, but I've done a lot of research on them because I don't have any problems with these backlinking issues. But
Right.
there is a tool called Majestic SEO, and although there's a paid plan subscription of just under $50 a month, it's free. This tool is free with their service, but it will be able to look at backlinks of competitors that are either helping them or not, right? And so it's good to look at your competitors that maybe are ranking higher than you and see what they're
Hmm.
doing, seeing where they're posting stuff. So
Okay.
take a look at that because it's worth some time. And if it's too deep for you, then ask your webmaster, your SEO person. So
Actually, the $50 a month that compared to what I've heard out there, that doesn't sound too unreasonable, really.
no, it's not, and it may be worth the look if you really want to piggyback what your competitor's doing, because it can point to valuable resources or valuable websites that they are backlinking to. So that brings us to the topic now of backlinking and how that works and how you can optimally do that. So let's say you've already got your high value content.
Right.
You're pressing it out with social media. You're pressing it out in your email, your newsletters. You also have it on your website. Great. But what a lot of successful people will do that are getting high rankings in SEO is that, for instance, for you, Bill, let's say you print up a really interesting article. Maybe it's a case, right? The result of a case. It could be a high visibility case or a very unique ruling that you may have had, and you
Right.
write a blog post. And so you want to post the results of that or a case study of that on, I don't know what your peer websites would be, if it's Avo or lawyer.com. Let's say
Yep.
you share that with those peer sites, and they pick it up, and they post it as a blog on their website. But you
Okay.
also have a link back to WFBLegalConsulting.com.
Okay.
So after somebody reads that case study on their website and they see your link, it's backlinking back to you, right? And here's the beauty about
Yes.
that. If you can partner with somebody like that, or just submit something to an article like this, something that they think it's a little bit different, but I think my viewership would really like to read that. If you can do that, number one, and you do that regularly, Google will reward you for that, and they'll reward you even more because it's coming from a reputable site, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
lawyers.
you're sharing it. You're showing that you're sharing. So in other words, Rick, you're putting your content, which have your keywords in it, and you're putting it somewhere else. And under that somewhere else, wherever you put this article or this blog, you have a link back to your site. That link back to your site is called a backlink.
Yeah, well, it's the process of linking back to your site. So
Okay. All
you
right.
can
There you go.
have you could have an active URL of wfblegalconsulting.com, but as soon as somebody points from that clicks on that, it points back to your site, and the article that's posted on that peer site that links back to your site is really the backlinking process. Okay,
Okay.
so
I got you. I
the
got you.
more, so the more articles that you have that are high value of interest to somebody else, and
Right.
even better yet, if you can share that with somebody who's willing to put it on their website that is a peer in their field or somebody reputable or a bigger company, the Google will reward you highly in the rankings because think of it this way: it's a peer vote of your content that's sitting on their site, and
Exactly.
Google loves that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
yeah.
No, one thing I wanted to interject real quickly, Rick, and I don't know how much this bears on the relevancy of what we're talking about, but you tell me. I always hear people talk about internal links and external links. How does that fit into backlinking, or does it at all? Does it have a connection?
Yeah, it does, and it gets a little bit of weight. The internal links, not so much, right? So basically you're pointing from one page within your site to another page within your site. Uh, I think that's very low weighted as Google is concerned with creating a higher ranking, because you're
Mhm.
just interlinking within your own hosting plan or your own domain. Now, like for you, you've got a number of sister sites, right?
Mhm.
And now that would certainly increase your ranking because it's coming from an external site. It's not within, right?
Right.
That's linking back to your primary site. So those types of techniques will help, but not as much as if it was coming from somebody else.
Okay, so if I have a sister site that's formulated solely on one of my three tiers. Now we've got asset protection, we've got employment law, we've got estate planning. Let's say I have an estate planning landing page where I blog. That's an external site that will have an external link in the form of wfblegalconsulting.com, which will then also be a backlink to WFB Legal Consulting. It'll be a backlink process, right?
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
with that WFBlegalconsulting.com link on the sister um estate planning page, would that be considered an external link and
That would
also a
be
backlink?
Yeah, that would be considered an external link. So in your case, let's say you write an article that has to do with asset protection, all right? So
Or estate planning in this case,
or yeah, estate planning.
right?
So and you post that to your primary WFB Legal Consulting blog, right? But you also want to put that on your sister site. Then
Right?
I would include the URL back to WFB Legal Consulting, even though that's sitting on your sister site,
Right.
because not everybody's going to land on your primary page because maybe you're driving traffic specifically to that
Right.
sister site.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that sister site with the WFB link on it, that's the backlinking process. And would that also, again, so I want to make this clear, would that also be considered an external link?
Yes,
Because it's
absolutely. Yeah.
okay, because it's external from the central site of wfblegalconsulting.com.
That's right. Right. So in your
Okay.
case, yeah. So your what is it? Asset protection 36 or best asset
No,
protection.
no. It's protectyourestate365.com would
Right.
be the estate planning one, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So those are some great techniques to improve your ranking in Google. To go out there and find who are the reputable websites out there that you could possibly share
Right.
relevant content within your industry. So
Or there's a lot of sites, Rick, that I've seen that stem from they're on. You can post stuff on Facebook, obviously, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn itself has different groups where you can post things.
mhm.
You can go to manta.com, for example. You can go to oceans.com. There are a number of different sites where there's discussions taking place, and rather than doing a blog or an article, you could actually post a response to a discussion and put a link to your site there, and that would also be a backlinking issue, a process, right?
Yeah, as long as it's coming from a reputable source,
Right.
then yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how do these guys, or what should you avoid when you're doing backlinking? Well, like I mentioned before, there's some pretty black hat techniques that people will use to increase their backlinks. And the number one way to do that is to go out to some company, whether it's an SEO company or even something as inexpensive as Fiverr.com.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's guys on there that'll sell backlink sources to you for $5, right? Which
Mm.
never, 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 ever do that. And the reason is you don't know where those backlinks are coming from. Okay, it could be sitting on it could be a URL. Let's say you're promoting some kind of legal product or whatever it happens to be. Okay, legal in this case.
Or maybe a do-it-yourself trust program, for example,
Yeah,
something like that.
right. But you go to Fiverr because you thought, oh, geez, I can get all these backlinks for $5 or $10 from Fiverr.com. But that backlink, that's coming back to your site is coming from a porn site because
Mm.
it
Hmm.
says something that attracts. It
Yeah.
says something regarding that. So a bunch of people will click that and they end up on your site. Well,
Yes.
all of a sudden you go from no backlinks to a boatload of backlinks, and then Google's going to say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Because all of a sudden you've got this mad rush of traffic that's coming to your site. Where is it coming from? And then they'll look into it and see that it's coming from there. Well, they'll quickly shut down. Well, they won't shut you down, but what they'll do is they'll push you down in the rankings. So instead
They'll
of,
push you down in the rankings,
yeah,
right?
if you're used to being searched on page 1 or page 2 of Google, all of a sudden you're going to be down in page 17 or 20. you know, uh,
So
which is no bueno.
I'm taking from this that you should number one only backlink on relevant sites to your business, and that you should develop this backlinking process slowly rather than in one fell swoop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a slow process, but it will last longer. It's more meaningful,
And
and
it's a fun process if you're running your own business. It really
oh
is.
yeah, yeah. And in the end, you're going to end up, ranking higher over a longer period of time. And uh, why it makes sense to be able to be shared, or your content being shared by industry leaders or your peers. So if you know someplace that you want to try and approach, and I'll give some examples on how to do that, then really consider sharing your content with those websites to increase your ranking through backlinking. And I guess I might as well mention here how to do that, because there's some really pretty easy ways to do that. So
Yeah, please do. Please do.
yeah, we mentioned before social networking. That's a great and easy and free way to do it, right? So
Right.
not only are you branding yourself as an expert, you can pick the number of backlinks that you want to put out there. So if you're sharing your content through social networking, whatever platform it is, whatever's relevant to your industry or to your company, by all means do that. And again, it goes back to tip number one. The more relevant you can make it, the more high value
Right.
content you can make it, hey, the better
Right.
results you're going to get. So
Makes
that's where
perfect sense.
yeah, that's where I would come in to really help somebody, especially if they're doing video marketing, to help them frame it in the way that's like, oh, geez, I want to share that with other people. So, like I said, it's a great way to do it.
Right.
Um,
That's
yeah,
great. I
yeah,
mean, because you can take that video marketing and you can take the content that's in that video marketing and follow a backlink process with a video which takes the place of a blog or some article, right? It's a
exactly.
built-in, yeah,
Yeah, think of it this way. Okay, you've got a YouTube channel, right? And you're producing these short little value videos, right, about
right.
certain topics in your industry. Well, hey, it's sitting in YouTube. What more reputable website can you have that would be backlinking to your primary website? So again, if you have relevant copy or relevant topics that you can share out there in the form of video or whatever it happens to be. In this case, it'll be video because it's sitting on YouTube, um, and is being watched by a lot of people that eventually will that uh, click on your link to learn more about you. That's a great way to increase your ranking on Google. It's
Yeah.
awesome. So,
Yeah, this makes perfect sense. You know, I've often wondered how many people really. It's one thing to hear the word backlink, and it's one thing to hear the word blog and an article and content and video, but to put them all together in this succinct way and to understand how to use it to market your business in today's web world, I call it. That's a whole different ballgame. You got to know this stuff, and you got to have somebody in your team that's going to be able to help you with it. And you're certainly the guy, Rick. So I
yeah.
mean, fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Is-
Another technique here, Bill, is something that we did here at the beginning of the show when we first did our first launch show, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
that was prior to that, we did a press release about the Bottle Business Sense show. right?
That's right.
And we
I
shared
remember.
it out. Yeah, we shared it out to our network. We shared it on social media. That's a great way to share um, newsworthy information out there with your industry or with viewers of your followers of your industry. It's a great way to boost your backlink count because it looks official. It looks, obviously it's very specific about what you're doing,
Right.
or maybe
Right.
a service or a product a new service or product that you're providing. So press releases are a great way to do it. And then the last thing to do is and it's really easy, is a guest posting. Okay,
Uh
so
huh.
maybe you know somebody at lawyer.com or Avo or whatever the peer site is that your industry happens to be associated with.
Right.
Don't be afraid to offer to write content on other people's websites. Right, it's a great way to help you gain exposure, and also get the backlinks that you want pointing back to your website.
That's
So
right. You kill two birds with one stone there, right?
yeah, yeah. So these three tips alone, they're easy. They're pretty easy to do. They're free. Really should be part of your SEO plan to organically help you increase your rankings on
Right.
Google. So it's a great
Well,
way to do it.
there's one thing I want to, at the close of the show, Rick. One thing I really want to clarify, and you tell me if I'm going astray. I don't think I am, but you let me know. It's great to be able to blog, okay, on your website if you have a blog page. It's great to be able to do that stuff. It really is. And that is helpful to your marketing efforts. But it's a whole nother story, isn't it, to blog or write articles or answer questions or guest write or whatever it might be on other sites, because it's not till you get to the other sites that you can place your backlink and go through the backlink process, which doubles your efforts, right? So in other words, there's a big distinction. Everybody says blogging is great, and it is. You can blog on your own site all you want. That's not bad. It's good stuff. But this backlink process, this is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it is. I did this. I've been doing a form of this uh, in the past with a different partner, and we had a product that we put out there, and we had a relatively small following. I mean, I think our mailing list was only about 3,000 or 4,000 people list. I
Uh huh.
mean, to most that's
Right.
pretty big, but to what we wanted to market to, it's pretty small. So one of the techniques that we used is um, we partnered with somebody else who was uh, in a different industry, but we tapped into their mailing list, and we
Mm-hmm.
did that in the form of doing a webinar on their website.
Interesting.
So based on doing that webinar with them on their site through their mailing list, not only did we capture all that viewership that we didn't have, in
Right.
some cases these other guys had 10, 20, 30,000 people following.
Right.
We did a webinar on their website, which eventually ended up backlinking to our primary site and giving us traffic. So
Right.
that's another way to do it. Not only can you be a guest speaker, but you can also do this on other people's webinars to get the traffic that you're looking for.
Yeah. This is really great stuff. I mean, folks, if you're into this like I am, you need to talk to Rick. You need to get a hold of him, and make sure that you're on board with this stuff. Where can people reach R2, Rick?
Oh, it's easy. So you can reach me directly at rick@r2visualstudios.com or at 949-667-1182. So be happy to help you out with any of these topics here. If you're not doing it, really, you should be. Right?
Really, really, absolutely. Well, it's been a really great show, Rick. I really do appreciate you taking the time to point this out, because I'm big on this, and I don't know that business owners are always in tune with the busy running. They're busy running their business. They're practicing their trade. You need to know this so you can bring people on board who can help you out if that's the case. And
We have a
Let
call
me,
coming in there,
I
Bill.
have a call coming in, and let me. That is not the call to the show, unfortunately. That is, well, fortunately, it's a business call, but I can return that later. In any event, thanks again, Rick. We'll look forward to seeing you guys next week for another show, and we'll be back same time, same place. Hope everybody has a prosperous week, and hope everybody takes advantage of this information and utilizes it, because I think it's really going to have an effect on your business. So until next week, everybody take care, and Rick, we'll see you again next week, bud.
All right, folks. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great day.
All right, take care, everybody. Well, that was fucked. Having that.